I don't know if you guys can tell, but the steam locomotive is down there.
No, we're down the street.
This is my first steam locomotive.
Are we gonna get on the choo-choo train?
Forever.
You see the steam?
Up. You want to get through? So I don't know if you could tell, but this is the main narrow gauge railroad museum we're on right now. And all the way down there is the locomotive. I'm extremely nervous. Oh, did I record in the museum? I don't remember. Probably.
You can only come back.
We are in motion.
So, when people come and ride with us here at Maine Narrow Gauge, one of the first questions often is, well, what do you mean by narrow gauge? Well, gauge is the distance between the rails. So most trains, the vast majority of trains in this country, are what are called standard gauge, which means that their tracks, their rails, are 4 feet 8.5 inches apart. 4 feet 8.5 inches. If you notice, as we go past what we call the runaround track, and we'll see what that means later, it'll be on the land side of our train. You get a good look at our rails. There's only 2 feet between them. So because we are narrower than 4 foot 8.5 inches, we are narrow gauge. And we are actually about the narrowest of the narrow gauges. The 24-inch or 2-foot gauge. It's about as small as anybody ever built for what we call common carrier railroads, which means railroads who carry anybody's freight and passengers and that kind of stuff. And it was only here in Maine that we had 2-foot gauge common carrier railroads. There was lots of standard gauge railroading here in Portland. And in fact, there was a standard gauge railroad. There was a standard gauge railroad right here on this very line where we operate. They had their standard gauge rails. And it was a line called the Grand Trunk Railroad.
Ooh,
They came all the way down from Montreal. So why was there a line from Montreal? We'll stop here for just a moment and then we're going to head the other way.
I got that on camera. They built this line from Montreal because the St. Lawrence Seaway would freeze in the winter and they couldn't get ships in and out of the port of Montreal. And they wanted to be able to ship products, particularly winter wheat, but other things as well, to Europe from Canada through the winter. And so the Grand Trunk Railroad built this line from Montreal all the way down here to Portland, which was an ice-free port. And so when they couldn't ship from Montreal, they
Handle that, right?
and in fact, this whole area where we are right now was part of the Grand Trunk Railroad's yard. They had a very large yard here.
That hurt.
Back where that building is under construction behind us was where a very large grain elevator was. And, you know, this was a long time ago, but it wasn't that long ago. I had a gentleman, an elderly gentleman on my train last week who told me that he grew up here in Portland and he was here and remembers vividly the night that that grain elevator burned. So, out in front of us in the water, you see a whole bunch of wooden pilings. And those wooden pilings are all that's left of the Grand Trunk Railroad's docks. They actually had tracks going out onto those docks, and they had sort of sheds built over the dock. So they had a sort of semi-enclosed space that they could pull the trains in and undercover load the freight onto the ship, protected from the weather. And that's all that's left now. So why did the Grand Trunk Railroad give this up? Well, we'll talk about that out at the end of our line, because that's the right place to tell that story. You'll see why when we get there. Incidentally, the building that houses our museum and the whole group of buildings around it are part of what was the Portland Manufacturing Company. And this was a heavy industry that built lots of different kinds of machinery. They built over 600 steam locomotives right here.
We're going fast, boys.
And lots of other things. They built things like stairways and elevators. There are a few Portland Company elevators which still operate in Portland today.
Oh, there's the diesel locomotive.
So, if the original narrow gauge railroads weren't here, and that really... a military building on an island. People always ask about it, so I want to make sure to tell you what it is. It's called Fort Gorges. It was built in response to the War of 1812, although the construction didn't actually start until the 1850s. By the time it was finished in the early 1860s, the cannons it was designed for were completely out of date. And the cannons that could be mounted on ships would be much more powerful. So it never saw much military use, although frankly there was never really a need for it either, because the harbor was never under significant attack. It was too long, short and long, which is the international signal for a railway crossing, as our train crosses Cutter Street.
Get ready to hear the whistle.
Incidentally, this is a little bit of what we call a grade. It's a hill going up. And this is the point where the engine actually pretty much works the hardest on our line.
That's an awesome sounding whistle.
Or not. So, George Mansfield started building this idea of a two-foot railroad. He realized when he saw it, everything was less expensive, right? Because it was all... And so places where they just wouldn't build standard gauge, you could build narrow gauge. And this interested the people who lived along the Sandy River in the area around Phillips, Maine. And I'll tell you their story when we start back. We're approaching Grand Trunk Railroad is no longer here. It was burned in the early 1980s by an arsonist. And they pulled the bridge open. It was a swing bridge. It was meant to open and close to allow ships and then trains to pass. But they pulled it into the open position and left it there, and Grand Trunk abandoned the rest of the line, which allowed it onto the track in front of you. And you're going to see that beautiful steel
Video, boys.
Hi.
Joe. Oh, it's raining.
Something like that size right there.
Good thing we have a roof. Bridge
All right, so
thing
now the steam engine is backing up. It's disconnected from the train, backing up past the track switch. And one of our firemen will throw the track switch. And here they come towards us. Get your cameras ready.
Oh, trust me, I've got mine already.
Trainman 7, will you take care of coupling?
Roger that.
Thank you.
Pausing just a moment for the fireman to put the switch back the way it was. You know, just like your parents probably tell you, we like to leave things the way we found them. Engine 7 is just come back into our operating fleet this spring after a 10 or 12 year, $250,000 restoration.
I believe it was 15.
Every 15 years of operation, a steam locomotive has to be taken down for a boiler inspection. And to do the boiler inspection, you really have to do an overhaul of the locomotive. All right, if you'd like to get off, you're welcome to do so. Beyond the end of the first coach, you can watch them couple the locomotive. They'll go down well past our train, all the way down to that trail crossing.
We're not allowed on these coaches because some dumb vandalism people. Huh, there's the broken window right there. They took it out. I'm gonna stop recording just for a second. They're doing a blowdown, I believe. This is hands down the best day of 2018.
Oh, that's that. There's these rods underneath the train that go like that with the turnbuckle.
Man, I started recording just in time for that whistle show.
Sag in between the wheels.
They're backing up.
Of course.
Tends to sag.
Yeah, that makes sense. We have a boat on.
You're good. You're good. You're good. You see that bottom hole in the middle? Anna?
Yeah, take a picture.
Alright. Shane, watch out.
You're okay. Yeah, you're good.
He's got Powerade.
He's not gonna drink the sit water, right?
of people who lived on the Sandy River. That's in the western part of the state, a very beautiful but very rural area. And they wanted to be able to ship their farm and forest products out and bring tourists in. And you couldn't do that by road in those days, right? Because there were no cars, and there were no trucks, and there were no paved roads. And so, by building a railroad, that gave them tremendous access. And by building a narrow gauge railroad, it was affordable for them to do so. Decided that it was probably the last opportunity.
That was fun. Thanks. Man, that was fun. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. Look at that boat, Dad. Alright, into the museum. And now, a museum tour. So, this is Monson Railroad, number 4. Got a big whistle up there. Love whistles. The bell. Oh my gosh. So that's the, I don't think you can see it. If you want to get a good look at it, just pause to get it. Sorry?
You worked on the railroad for 52 years.
Jeez, that's a long time. Hey, you can push a button.
Pretty past there.
Whoa.
I was gonna say you can walk down the whole car on the other side.
This one, yeah, you can, it just says no entry pass. Look at the old train seats.
Yeah, I see.
Don't touch. Isn't that cool?
Those
Look at the
are.
furnace.
You're not allowed to touch those because those are.
The furnace.
That's how passenger cars used to be heated.
Mm-hmm.
Shane, I see. Alright, you're fine. It's really hot in here.
Out the window.
These cars are nice.
Hey, Tim. Hop up there and stick your head out the window with John.
Oh, you can, the windows are open.
Stick your head out. Look at mommy. Over there, Sam. What's the matter?
Is that a restroom? I was trying to see.
You don't have to go anywhere.
I did not edit this in. I don't know why it's there.
Passengers now boarding at Alton, Wisconsin Railroad to Palermo, Gould, Weeks Mills, Wisconsin. All aboard! Now boarding Wisconsin Railroad passengers. Scott, down the center. Pentide, Whitefield, Coopersville, Weeks Mills, China, East and North Vassalboro.
If you don't know, this is the picture of a Maine Coon on the front cover. My cat, Coon Cat. Oreo, my old cat, was a Maine Coon cat. There's another red one I haven't seen. I didn't see this one before. Now what you see here is a whistle. I believe it is a 1, 2, 3. I believe it is some sort of small 4-chime whistle. And this is some whistle signals.